think we're live. Yeah, we are. Okay, alright. So, how are you doing, guys? Today we will be covering Python programming basics. We will go through data types, data structures, dictionaries, lists, how to create simple programs using Python. So we will get you up and running with Python in this stream, hopefully. I will try to edit this and release it as multiple videos in the channel, but for now this is, as you can see, a stream. Okay, so we will be using, as you can see behind me, Replit, which is a website that gives you the ability to write code in the browser. This is so much easier than writing the software in Visual Code or whatever, because you can after I share the files with you, you can go and edit those files in the browser, in your mobile, in your desktop, without having to set up your coding environment, which is great. And we will be referring to this great documentation by W3 Schools. We'll go through their documentation. We'll create a couple of simple programs, and then maybe, hopefully, later, like in the upcoming streams, we will start to go advanced with the topics we cover. We may go machine learning, Django and Flask, creating web development, etc. But for now, let's cover Python basics. Let me just do something real quick. Alright, so as you can see, we've got the Python tutorial. So what's Python? Python is a general purpose programming language. It's interpreted programming language, which means it's not compiled. So to run a Python program, you would need to have Python in your system installed. You can't just run Python. For example, normal programs in your Windows, they will be compiled and then they will have that extension .exe, which means you can run the program even if you don't have the interpreter or the programming interpreter. For example, if you built an app using C++, you would compile it and it would be in in machine language, basically, so it would be ready to run, in opposed to Python, which the code would still be in Python and you would need an interpreter to run the actual program. It's more of a scripting language, but it has improved and now it's used vastly. It's #1 most used programming language, I think. Not sure if the statistics don't come at me with that. So yeah, anyhow, so learning by example. So okay, so first thing first, this is the first thing you do with any programming language, is you create or you type hello world. So if we would go over here, so let me just explain the interface real quick of Replit. So basically here you will write the code, or we will write the code. I will share with you this whole project when we finish. We will not use the tools for now. Here are the files. We will just use the main.py for now. We'll create multiple files as we go, and this is the main button that you click to run your program. So first thing we do is we print to the console. Okay, this is the console, as you can see. We print hello world, or we just want to type the word hello world. So in here we'll go up here and we will type the word print, and then a couple of parentheses, open parentheses, close parentheses, and then a double quote. Okay, so one double quote, and then an opening double quote, and then a closing double quote, as you can see over. Okay, I wouldn't get up to there. Okay, anyhow, so and then we type hello world. We'll explain everything, just give me a few seconds. Okay, we've run the program, and as you can see, we've got the hello world over here. Not sure. Okay, as you can see in the mouse right here. Okay, So what we would do over here, alright, so in Python, like anything you write, so anything you write right here needs to be a Python keyword, okay? So a Python that the interpreter, the machine can understand. There are a number of fixed keywords which we'll go through and we will learn about as we go, but I just wanted you to understand this. But anything that goes into quotes, double quotes, can be any type of text you want. So for example, if I typed hello world over here and run the program, okay, let's remove this. If I just typed hello world, this won't work, okay? It would raise an error. Why? Because a syntax error means there is something wrong with the thing you wrote. The interpreter couldn't understand it. But when you add double quote to it, it won't complain. Why? Because now it just, you know, it just treats it as it is. It does not try to execute it, doesn't try to run it. That's pretty much it. But now this is just a block of, or like a line of text, okay, a couple of words. It doesn't do anything. So we use that verb, okay, or the keyword that Python gives us. This is basically a function. We will go how to create your own functions, but you can, it's just basically a function. And then to call a function, like run the function, you give it a couple of parentheses, and then you pass whatever you want inside those parentheses. In this case, we just passed this block of text, and print, what it does is just prints the thing you wrote into that console as it is, to the standard output, also known as the standard output. Okay, nice. So there are a lot of things we could go through. Okay, so what is Python used for? As we can see, Python is used for web development, software development, mathematics, system scripting, etc. There are loads of things you can use Python for. I've used Python across the board with almost everything. Like web development, you can create servers, you can create data analytics apps, you can connect to databases, they create automations, almost everything. Yeah, that's why it's so powerful, and its syntax is very simple. So Python can be used on a server to create web applications. Python can be used to like connect things, you know. You can create REST APIs with it, you can create GraphQL APIs. If you don't know what all of this, don't worry, it's just, you know, I'm trying like to give you a great overview of the things you will be capable of doing with Python. So the great things about Python, it works across, it's a cross-platform language, so you can run it almost on every device. Python has a simple syntax. Python has syntax that allows, okay, you can write like, for example, if you would compare like the Java code with Python code, you see the Java code is very verbose, and like you need a lot of typing to get the thing and make it running. As you can see, Python runs on an interpreter system, meaning that the code can be executed as soon as it's written. This means that prototyping can be very quick. Yeah, basically it doesn't compile pre-runtime. Python can be treated in a procedural way, which what we just did. You know, you can just write whatever you want to execute as it is. You don't need to like create an object or whatever like you do in Java. The most okay, Python syntax, etc, etc. Okay, let's see. This is the installation. We wouldn't need this for now because we're using the Replit, but you could go through this if you want to install Python on your machine and run this code directly on your machine. Okay, alright, so Python indentation, I don't want to go through this for now, but yeah, let's go. First thing you need to understand about programming. So basically in programming, like, I'm sure this is intuitive to some people, but either you store data, okay, or you manipulate data. So either way, so this is considered manipulation because you take the data, the variable, the hello world text, and you manipulate it to be shown in the console. Maybe, for example, you could have like let's show you an example. Okay, so this is hello world. What if I want to print it 3 times? Okay, I can just multiply it by 3 and run this, and this would print hello world 3 times in a row. This is manipulation. Okay, so okay, the thing about Python, okay, our first thing we need to learn about Python after this printing is variables. What is a variable? Think of a variable as a container that holds data. Okay, so for example, it's think of it like a box. Like for example, if you want to send, like if you have loads of data and you want to take it from one room to another, or sorry, loads of things that you want to take from one room to another, it would be easier to just put all of the things in a box and take this box to the another room, right? This is what variables helps you with. Sometimes you can just avoid this box and do it directly, but if there's a lot of data, it makes things easier to organize. So for example, you could, if there is, like if you're moving out from one house to another, you would be like much better off if you can label things, okay? And like say this box for the books, for example, this box for the technology devices, okay? So whatever, this box for cables, whatever you go with, but it makes organizing things much easier. So let's try. Okay, I like to take a practical approach, so let's create an app, okay, that print the sum. Okay, so it adds 2 numbers and gives us the results. So this would give us a great way of touching on variables. So let's see. You can do it first. Easiest way is you can just use this print function, okay, which we discussed, and then inside the function you can just type whatever operation or whatever equation you want. Whatever mathematical expression you want. So for example, we could say 5 plus 9. Okay, that's one thing. That's one way you could do it. Now if we run this, you would see you just directly get the results, which is 14, which is awesome, you know. Another way you could do it, okay, it wouldn't make sense for now, but you will see how beneficial it is once we start to getting into more advanced, or like a little bit advanced apps or programs. So so we can say, let's say first number. Okay, so number 1. Now we're defining a variable. Okay, so in opposed to math, in math, when you use the equality, okay, the equality symbol, it means you say this, okay, this number 1 equals 5, okay. But in Python, or in programming in general, most programming languages, this means you are defining this variable num1 and giving it the value of 5. So if we remove this right now and just type num1, which is this variable name, it will print here the number 5, which is the number inside this variable. Hope that makes sense. So a variable name has some limitations, okay? So you are not, like, you can't start a variable name with a number, okay? That's one thing. So as you can see, it gives an error. That's one thing. You can't. So the variables basically have to start with either with a character or an underscore. That's it, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure if I missed anything, but like generally, all variables would start with a character or an underscore. So it could go with underscore, for example. This would work normally. Okay, you see this is another error, which is telling us that number 1 is not defined because we're trying to use it over here, but the variable we're defining has a different name. So this is something you need to pay attention to. So if we copy this and paste it here to use, like, to print the same variable, now it will give us the value, the variable, and would work perfectly fine. So Long story short, variable names have to start with an underscore or a character. You can have numbers inside the variable, but it shouldn't be it can't be the first one at the beginning of the variable. Okay, so that's for variables. Variables could be anything. So we just showed a variable, an integer variable, which holds a number. You could, for example, take a name, create a variable name. Now we are calling this variable name. So this is like labeling the box, and then you can put your name. So for example, I'd say Abod. Okay, Abod. Okay, so then I will print this name, and it would show the name that I've just created and assigned to the variable we created, which is variable name. Okay, now we will cover a small thing called concatenation, okay, in Python, which is like adding two block of text or two texts together. So what if I want to create like an app that greets, okay, like sends greetings to whoever name I put. So I could say like this. So we could say greeting. Okay, we'll create a variable called greeting, and would say, for example, good morning. I'm not sure if that's correct, but whatever. Now this is the greeting. Okay, so we created it in a variable without the name. Then inside the print statement, we could say greeting, okay, plus the name. So we're adding those together, so it prints the greeting, as you can see, good morning, and then the name, which is inside the variable name. Now what helps us with this is you can now just change the name over here, and it would automatically change under here. So for example, let's say Ahmed, for example. Now it prints good morning Ahmed. You see how it works? So Bob works too. Any name you put over here, it would print over here. That's awesome. Okay, now let's say you want the user to enter their name when they run the program. So you don't want to define this in the you don't want to find this in the code itself. You want to ask the user what is their name, and then you grade them. Okay, so easy way. There's another function called input, which is like the opposite of print. So let me show you. Let's comment this. Okay, so there's this concept in Python called comments. I can add a hashtag, okay, hashtag symbol in front of the code line, and this code line won't execute, it won't run, it will act as if it does not exist. You remember when we just typed hello world in double quotes and then the app would run, right? The same way you could just add a hashtag symbol in front of that, in front of the line code, and now this code won't run, it won't execute. So this variable greeting will not be evaluated, it will not be created, it acts as if it does not exist. Now if I run the code, you would notice I would get an error, greeting, okay, name error, name greeting between single quotes is not defined because the greeting in the line 3 did not get created. Anyhow, okay, let's remove this for now, and I just want to print name. Okay, now we want to create an app that asks the user for their name. We will cover a function called input. This function called input, we can just type input, okay, and it takes a string, which is the question you want to ask the user. It then returns the value the user will write, and then stores it in the variable name. Now that's some powerful thing, because now you can just create cool programs. Okay, so the variable name, for example, I could just go over here and for example ask for a name. So we could say, what's your name? Okay, now when I run the program, it's gonna ask me in the console what's my name, and whatever name I write over here, it's gonna just print it in the next line, as you can see over here. Now how this helps us to create our program, which creates the user as soon as they enter their name, is now we can make this, uncomment this line and have it back. Okay, and then okay, let me close this, and then greeting. Okay, now we'll have that back. Now we can put our code back as it was, which is greeting plus name. Now when we run the program, it's gonna ask us what's your name. If I put my name, whatever name you want, okay, it's gonna say good morning and then the name you just provided. Okay, that's really nice. Now what happens, okay, let's close with this and let's try to create another code program which takes the addition, okay, takes two numbers from the users, okay, and then it adds them together and then returns the total. So let's see how this works. So we will create one variable, call it number1, which will be an input, and so we tell the user to enter the first number, okay, and then we will have another variable called number2, which would be pretty much the same as the one above, but will be the second number, okay. And then lastly we will print number1 plus number2. Now this will not work, okay, and I will show you why, but first I want to show you how it won't work, then we will fix it, because programming is pretty much debugging like 90% of the time. So let's run this. It's gonna ask me for the first number, okay, let's enter maybe 8, okay, and press enter. Then it's gonna ask us for the second number, let's say 5. I'm gonna put 5 and then press enter. It gives us 85, which is not correct, right? Why did it give us 85? Because this input, okay, this input function returns whatever the user writes, but it returns it as text. What does that mean is this 8 was treated as if it's hello world, for example, as if it's a username, or as if it's a block of text. It did not interact with it as a number. How can you know what kind is the type, or what type of the variable, so you are sure this will not happen? Let me show you this real quick. Let's put this away. I'm gonna create another file and call it call it string first, strings and numbers .py. Okay, so strings and numbers .py. Okay, so we'll create the first variable. We'll call it name. We'll put name, okay, let's say Whilelab, okay, the name of the channel, why not? Then we'll create another variable. We call it number as a text, okay, number as a text. We will enter the number 200, I don't know, whatever. And then we just create another variable, call it number. We'll give it maybe 150, 200, whatever. You see there's difference, okay? Here we created it with the strings, which means with double quotes, which means it's the type of string, but this will be treated as a normal number. How do you know the difference if you didn't define the variable? Okay, you can just get the type of the variable if you used the type function. So if I use the type function with the name, now this will not print anything if I run it, because I need to print the result of the type, okay? This print function is very powerful and you will be using it a lot. So now what we want to do is print the type of the variable name, okay, not the variable, we just want the type. Now if we run this, it should give us Okay, it ran the main app. Okay, let's okay, open the shell. We'll say Python strings and numbers. Okay, as you can see now, because this always runs the main app, it ran the main.py, which we don't know. So when we use this Python function, sorry, Python app, so we're basically calling Python to run our app strings and numbers. As you can see, it returns this output, which is telling us that this variable name is of type string. Okay, now here's the interesting thing. If we replace this name with number and run this again, it would tell us it's an int. Okay, I did the same mistake. Okay, sorry, I should run it from here. Okay, int, which is a shortcut of integer. Okay, which means it's a number. Now here's the interesting thing. If we take this number as a text and we try to get its type, it will tell us it's a string. Now here's the cool thing. If we go back to the main.py and then we created a number over here, let's say 100, and then we go over here and we print the type of the number 1, which we would provide it over here. Okay, sorry, let's run this again. It will ask us for the first number, we will give it some number 1 2 3. It will ask us for the second number, whatever. It will give us it will tell us that this of type string. But if we gave it the number variable, it will tell us it's an integer. Now here's why this is important, because now, though we're expecting a number, if we run the program, I could pretty much give it a name and this would work. So for example, Abod, Whilelab, whatever, it would still work. And if you want to see the results of both, you could say number 1 plus number 2. You would notice that if you add any text, it would just run and just concatenate them. Okay, add them together and list the total, or like list the full thing. So as you can see, dgfsdg, okay, up to here, and then gsdg, which is the next string, and that's how it treats numbers. But we don't want that. So now we will have a look at casting. Casting is when you convert one thing from one type to another. So something like this, we don't want to have those numbers as string. We don't want them to have them as text. So what we do is use a function called integer. Okay, it's shortcut, or when you call it, you just type int, which is the same way we treat those, and it converts the type. So if we go back over here, and if I took if I took this number as a text and we had it as is, okay, when we ran it last time, it gave us string, right? But if I passed this 200 into a function called integer, okay, its shortcut is int. When you call it, you just use int, you don't use integer, but it's a shortcut for the word integer, which means a whole number in math. Okay, now if I run this, here's the thing, it treats it as an integer. Now the type returns as an integer, so it's the same thing as this number. So here's a cool thing. If I try to add this, okay, if I try to add this number plus number as a text before adding this integer, so if I try to add it will give me an error. Okay, not this, it would give me an error, which is a type error, unsupported operation basically for plus, because one of them is integer, another one is string. You can't add those. So how do we fix this? As I've said, we just pass this to the integer function, which would convert its type to integer. Now when we run it, it would do a normal arithmetic addition which would add the 150 and the 200, which equals 350. If we go back to our original app, what we want to do over here is pass those numbers into this integer function, so we can have them have their types as integers, so the addition acts as a mathematical arithmetic and not just add text next to each other. So if I pass now those to the integer function, so here we'll pass number 2 and here we will pass number 1, and we add those together, it will ask us for the first number, which we said 8, the second number, which is 5, and it would give us 13. 13 is the correct answer, so we fixed this problem. Okay, let's see what else do we need to cover over here. Okay, variables, we covered that. Okay, casting here, so as you can see, you could do also the opposite, so you could convert a number into a string using the string function. So if we go back here, so if I remove this and put it as 200, and then I pass this to string, and then I add them together, as you can see, now when I run it, it adds that 150 to the 100 to the 200 as it is as a text. Okay, there's float, which is for like fractions. You can check the type with the type function, as I've told before. Okay, strings, variables, so in single quotes, double quotes, doesn't really matter. Case sensitive, it's case sensitive. Variables are case sensitive, so that's something worth noting. So if this number variable, when I define it, if I said the first letter is a capital number and I tried to run this, it would give me an error because this number with a small n is not defined, but it's defined with a capital N. Now if I update this to be a capital N, now it should work, and it worked. Or okay, maybe not logically because it still adds the number, but it executed, it ran. Okay, so that's another thing of like, there are bugs and there are errors. So a bug is something that makes the app not run as expected, like as we faced the error before, which is when we add numbers, we want to add them arithmetically, but they were added in a different way, so it didn't give us an expected result. But an error is a syntax error, or a name error in this case. This is meaning there's something in our code that prevents the app from running in the first place. Okay. Variable names. Okay, let's take a look at this real quick. So you can, a variable name must start with a letter or an underscore character. A variable name cannot start with a number, as I've told you. A variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters, so A to Z, capital small, and then 0 and 9, and then underscore. So those are the only allowed characters basically. Variable names are case sensitive, so age and age with an A capital are not the same. Okay, this is a list of some legal or like variable names that would work. Multi-words variables, you can't, if you add the space in the variable name, it won't work, so you need to have it as a single word. You could, like for example, sometimes you add scores, as I did over here. Maybe you could make them, this is just for clarity, okay, so maybe you could do it as a capital, so each word starts with a capital letter, so you can distinguish each word so it's readable. Or you could do underscores like I did. Okay, as you can see, those are the cases. So you could say camel case, which starts with a small letter and then each word with a capital letter. There is Pascal case, which each word starts with a capital letter, even the first word. This is snake case, which is the one I used. Mostly in Python, it's a snake, so we usually use the snake case. Okay, assign multiple values. Okay, alright. So multiple values. Sorry, multiple variables assignment dot by. Okay, so you could say a b c equals 1, 2 and 3, and then print a plus b plus c. This should give us the number 6. Okay, multiple variables. Okay, I misspelled the word Python. As you can see, it gave us the number 6. Okay, so you can define variables this way. I don't recommend it. You really do this. Sometimes you do it, but like I better have them each one in a different line, easier for the eye. Okay. Alright, yeah, lists. So okay, let's create a program, okay, that takes multiple numbers and adds them together. So let's say it takes an indefinite amount of numbers, so it asks the user for a number each time. This will help us get through some interesting concepts. So let's say multiple addition. Okay, so let's go calculator addition calculator add.by. Okay, so sorry. Okay. Ooh, my throat hurts because I've been speaking for a while now. Okay. Hopefully we're already live. Okay. Not sure. Let's check where's the share link. Okay, here. Go to Twitter. Okay, so addition calculator app. Okay, let's go through this. So first thing we want is to take an indefinite amount of numbers. So we want to keep asking the user for another number until they don't want to add any other numbers. Okay, so how we can do this? There are multiple ways we could do this, but let me think of how. Okay, what would be like a sensible way? Okay, let's start with adding 3 numbers together, but we will define the numbers beforehand, so we'll not ask the user. This would be a good start. Usually when you create software, you try to like chop up, okay, you try to split and reduce the complexity of the app to something you can do, and then try to add to that. So first thing we want is to be able to add multiple numbers that we defined previously. So how we would go about this is create something called a list. Okay, so in Python you can create a list using the brackets. So you do a double, like opening closing brackets like this, and then you add items. Okay, this list could have any types of items, so it could have numbers, strings, objects, which we'll cover in the future. Any data type could be inside a list, but in this case we want to just have numbers. So each element in the list need to be separated with a comma. So how we go about this is, for example, write the first number, write the second number, right at the third number and the fourth number. Okay, now we've got a list of four numbers, and we want to add those together. How can we do this? There are a couple of ways we can do this. I will cover first the way that will help us learn, and then I will cover a fast way that you should be aware of when you write code, because people wouldn't expect you to write like this. But I want to teach you something, so I will go and solve it in a more like time-consuming way. So how would you go about this? So you want to get the total sum of all those numbers. We haven't covered this, but yeah, we will cover it. So there's this thing in Python called for loop. Okay, so a for loop, let me comment this. A for loop syntax goes like this. So for, okay, this is a keyword in Python, and then you give it whatever name you want, which is a variable name. Let's say for integer, okay, for number n, okay, and then you pass it a list. This list, or it's called an iterator, but for sake of simplicity we'll call it a list. So this list, this for loop would gives us each variable separately. So for number n, let's give it a list. So 1 2 5 and 42. Okay, so we said for it's read like this, so you read it like this. For each number in this list, okay, and then you press enter. Okay, you add this colon, and then you press enter. You need to pay attention to something really important, which is indentation. Python indentation is really important. What is indentation? It's the space. Okay, as you can see, we are 4 characters away from the start of the line. What this tells the interpreter when it tries to run the code is that whatever code we write in here, okay, it falls under the for loop. So let me show you something. I'm gonna print this variable number, okay. I'm gonna run this app, which is Python, oops, where is it? Okay, here, Python addition calculator app. As you can see, it prints over here, okay, over here prints 4 okay, sorry, 1 2 5 and 42. 1 2 5 and 32, those are the numbers in this list. So it goes through the list, takes the first number, now variable number has the value of 1, we print 1, and then it goes to, like, it loops and goes through the second element, which is 2, and then it prints 2, and then prints 5, and then prints 32. It goes until it consumes all the elements in the list, and then it stops. Now back to the indentation thing. We said this is important because this tells the Python that this code runs in the context of this for loop. Because if I didn't respect this and I said print number right outside, okay, as you can see, outside the context of the for loop, now this is not defined outside of the context of the for loop. So if I run this, it will give an yeah, that's in C++, sorry. So as you can see, it just printed the last number, which is interesting to me actually. So if I okay, so it gives us the last number. So we are not in the context of the for loop. Last item assigned was 42. It keeps the number, it gives us just the last number, so we didn't benefit from the fact of the for loop. Okay, yeah, so this thing called scoop, variable scoop, which I think is, yep, it's covered here, we'll go through it later. Anyhow, that's interesting. Alright, so how can we go about this is we can create another variable. Okay, here's the way. we create a variable called a total, which would start at 0. Okay, and then we will keep adding as we go through each number to this total, and then we just print this total. So if I go and print this total over here right now, okay, sorry, not this. Right now it will be just 0. As you can see, it's the last thing over here. Those are printed from the for loop, and then we get the total, which is 0. Now if I did this, okay, as you can see, it's still 0. But if we go over here and then we said total equals total plus the number, this is an interesting syntax, because now we're saying total, okay, for each loop, total should equal whatever total is at that point plus the number. So here's how it executes. Let me do a couple of print statements here, and it would show you how this works. So here we would say total equals total, and then we say print, we would call it number, and then we'll print the number. And I'm gonna comment this. Now if you run this, as you can see, so it starts with total being 0, okay, because it starts at 0, and then the number is 1, so we are at that first number in the list, which is the number 1, and then the total is now 1. So in the second loop the total is 1 because we added it in the previous loop, and then the number is 2, which is this number, and then now the total is 3 because 1 and 2 is 3, and then we are that number 5, okay, and then so we add 3 and 5, which gives us 8. So now total is 8, and then number 42, and since we don't run total at the end, it will not give us the total. So if we uncomment this now, it should give us the total of all the numbers added together. So as you've seen, latest total is 8, and then it's gonna, so as you can see, the last thing that prints in the last loop, it's just number and the number, and then the total is total plus number, which is 42 plus 8 gives us 15, and this is the total that's printed over here. Okay, that's hard. Okay. Oh, all right. Let me take a break. Okay, and we'll be back. All right, we're back. Okay, so this was like the difficult way, but it taught us how the for loop works. So the easier way is you can ditch this. Okay, I will leave this. Okay, let's leave this. So to complete this, now we can just replace this with the variable numbers up there, but we just need to uncomment it. Now if we run this, it would give us the total 37, which is the total of adding all of those numbers. Okay, so this we'll call it addition calculator. Fast, let's call it fast. It's the easier way. I don't know what to call it. Let's copy this. Okay, so here's this example. We will not need like most of this. Actually, we will not need any of this. So what you can do over here is there's a built-in function in Python called sum, sum, which sums together and gives you the total of addition of all the elements in any given list of numbers. So now we could just pass numbers. So actually, let's say you could say total equals sum of all numbers. And now if you print total, okay, not run like this. If we print total and run this right now, addition calculator underscore underscore fast. Okay. If we run this, it would give us 37, which is the same total as previously, but like with 3-4 less lines of code. Okay. Okay. Nice. Right. Alright. Let's see if we can find anything interesting over here. Data types. We don't actually have to run most of these settings. Okay. Okay, let's do the it's called the what is it? Okay. Foo Boo challenge? Not sure. Basically, you if a number is divisible by 3, you print foo. If it's divisible by 5, you print boo. If it's divisible by 3 and 5, you print full boo. Okay. This is an interesting challenge because it's asked, or it used to be asked quite a lot in programming and software engineers interviews. One sec. Okay, I'm almost running out of time, so let's wrap this up. Alright. Okay, so okay, so we were talking about it's let me just remember, try to remember. Okay, let's research the name. Oh my god. Okay. So as I was explained, yeah, couldn't find the name of that challenge, but we will go about it. Okay. or you know what, like let's find something easier. Okay, so let's say we want to create an app that asks the user their name. Okay, let me think. Okay, let's create an app that asks the user for their gender. If they are male, it's gonna say Mr., and then if she's a female, it's gonna say Miss. Okay, that sounds like a good app. Okay, so gender creating app. Okay, let's go. Okay, so how we'd go about this? So first thing, we want to ask the user for their name and their gender. So how do we do this? As we've said, so we create a variable name and then ask for the user name using the import function. Oh my god, sorry. Okay, so we take the name. Okay, so we'll ask the user what's your name, and then we'll ask for their gender. So import what's your gender, and then here's the interesting thing. In Python, or in programming languages in general, there is this concept called conditional if statements. If statement is a block of code that only executes if the variable is a truthy variable. What does mean a truthy variable, you say? Okay, so a true in Python there's this variable, or this built-in value called true value, and then there is another value called false value. Let's cover them real quick before we get into this. So I will comment this. So you could say like true is true, and then give it a value, okay, a boolean value. It's called a boolean value of true. And then you could, if this is true and we print is true, it's gonna print true, duh. But we could say also true or false, you know, which gives us true. We could say true and false, which would give us false. It didn't update. It didn't have time to update to say false. Okay, and so this is basically like the or and the and in the logic gateways. Anyhow, so is true and false. So those statements, you could pass them into an if condition, and if it's true it will print, if it's false it will not print. Now what's interesting is, as you can see, it prints true and false, but you could actually compare. So we could say like, does 5 equal 5? That's an interesting question, and that's actually true. 5 equals 5. We could ask, as you can see, we used that double equals symbol. This in programming, or in Python specifically, means are those numbers equal? So it's equality check, but one equal is defining a variable. I hope that's clear. Okay, so 5 equals 5. We could say 5 is less than 5, and that's actually false. It takes time to update, yeah, but it's actually false, as you can see. We could say 5 less or equals 5, which is true, but I just have to put the equal after the less than sign. it's true. Yeah, 5 is equal or less than 5. Now, how this would help us is we could go over here and comment this, okay? Because this same thing could, okay, let's comment it back. This same thing we could check if a text equals something. So we could say, does A equals A? Or we could say, does A equals AB, which is false. Okay, and that's what we would use actually to define the Miss and Mr. thing. So we would say if gender, okay, I added an additional here. Let's uncomment this. So if gender equals male, then the greeting will be hello Mr. and then the name. Okay, nice. And then we'll add another if condition, which is if gender, or here's interesting here. You can actually redefine variables. So we can say greeting equals hello miss. Okay, so by default it says hello miss, but if the gender is a male, then it would say hello Mr. Okay, now we can go over here and then we could say print greeting plus name. Now if we run this, it should ask us for the name. Let's say Abod, what's your gender? Male. It would say hello Mr. Abod. Here's the thing, let's say a female is using that and we ask for the name. Let's say Anna. Okay, what's your gender? Female. It would say hello Miss Anna. And that's if conditions for Python. We'll go through more like if conditions. I would need to prep some like content for this, so we will cover this next stream, Saturday 9 p.m. See you then. Take care. Peace out.